What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is the Nerdwide Podcast, episode 134. I'm your host, Tyler Haynes, with my good friend and co-host and just all-around great nerdy guy, Chris Rivers. Now, Chris, we've got a giant episode, which the likes we have not done in a long time as far as recaps and things. It's been getting a little meaty here the past couple of weeks due to all of our shows.
Yeah.
But this is the big ketchup episode is what I'm going to call it. And yes, not mustard, ketchup. So,
But you know what? You know what? We relish these sorts of
gosh,
episodes.
excellent. Excellent puns this week. I hope you keep them coming because listen, we got 8 episodes to talk about. 3 of Gen V, which includes the finale. Loki, which is the penultimate episode, and a Goosebumps episode, and then 2 episodes of Doom Patrol, which the last one is the penultimate of the season. But the big one, a good meaty fun one here, Invincible Season 2, Episode 1 recap and talk about as well, which I've got a bunch of fun little Easter eggs and things for Gen V and Invincible to talk about. So a lot of fun things. I was able to watch the Invincible Season 1, all 1 through 8 episodes of it. So I'm pretty caught up with all of that fun stuff. But before we get there, Chris, I want to talk about, how was your week? Did you have overtime this week?
Yes.
Gross. Okay.
Right. Right. And I had to work yesterday.
Oh.
So not fun. I did pick something up that has something to sort of last week's ties. I don't think we really talked about it. I ordered Matthew Perry's book.
Oh.
Of course,
Yeah.
he passed away a week ago today
Mm-hmm.
as we're recording this. No, a week ago plus a day.
Yeah, yesterday. Which
And
rough.
so I picked it up. I've already read the foreword and the prologue,
Good.
which is a little rough to read.
Considering.
Lisa Kudrow wrote the foreword,
Oh.
and like one of the last sentences of her foreword, because of course he was still alive when this was put together, is "I'm glad you're not dead."
And
So
here we
now
are.
that I've brought the show down,
Yeah, how was your Halloween?
No.
Did you do anything crazy? I mean,
I went to a crazy party on Saturday.
yeah, that was black hair's back though, so we're all good here. All right. We went out trick or treating. I didn't really see anything crazy. A lot of Pennywises, but that was not like there was maybe an inflatable squid walking around, which was
Yeah.
I guess probably the craziest thing I saw this year. It was very cold, so we didn't stay out too long with the lit list. But
So let me ask
nothing
you
too
this,
crazy.
right? Because I don't have kids, and so obviously I'm not going out trick or treating.
Listen, you can take these anytime you want them.
Do you feel like it's dying compared to when we were?
See,
I'm older than you, so I know for me, like the neighborhood was full of people going around.
ours usually is, and ours is usually like the big neighborhood that everyone hits up in our county, or our city rather. And people in our neighborhood Facebook group were complaining that there weren't as many as the past couple of years. And I don't know if it's because of overcrowding. We've been building a whole bunch of neighborhoods around here recently, townhomes, apartments, and things like that. And that's what someone brought up. Like maybe it's because of overcrowding and overbuilding and stuff like that. But I don't think there was as many this year, though. Like even when we walked around, because we were right there, right at sunset, and it was dark when we got home and everything. So, and there weren't that many people out and about. Some dumb
Yeah.
kids, because we didn't have our lights on, and because we have a ring out front, and that kept going off. We maybe like 5 people ring the doorbell, no lights on in the house or anything, and I'm like, come on, guys. So it was really funny because we hit our neighbor's house up last. And as we were walking down our road and walking to our neighbor's house, there was a group of kids that went and rang our doorbell. Again, no lights on or anything. And I was like, oh, I said, they're not going to, that's kind of dumb. And we're talking about it. And here goes Stella. Daddy, look, they're going to our house. Stella, shut up. we're trying to, no, that's not ours. It's just kids are dumb. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
anytime you want to borrow one free, then you can have them. You know.
I would think that the strategy would be to go around a little bit late, so you get people that are wanting to get rid of their candy,
Right.
and they just dump it in your bag.
Yeah. It's or
So,
like there were people here hanging out Jello shots for the adults, so they could trick or treat too. I didn't, of course, because I was on a still a cleanse, if you will, from last
yeah,
weekend. So, but you know that it was nothing too crazy. But yeah, I think it's starting to decrease a little bit, which saddens me because Halloween's my favorite holiday. But I just don't know if it's just our neighborhood or if it was too cold or if it's a school night kind of thing. But that's what it is on Hallows Eve.
maybe in small towns it's still
Yeah.
a bigger thing.
Sounds like we need to move up north where like all these movies and TV shows take place. Not all the murder ones, but all the fun ones.
Like all the Hallmark stuff.
Yeah, Hallmark. Guy comes in from the city, falls in love with a girl from high school. Anyways, quick housekeeping before we jump into this big catch-up episode. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube or podcasting service, whichever one you do use. If you enjoy the show, make sure you leave us a thumbs up on YouTube or give us a good rating, whatever podcast service you use. If you don't enjoy what you see or hear, make sure you leave us a comment. Let us know we can improve. Is the audio suck? Like any kind of like new segments, things like that. That's the comments are a way to do it. If you want to do more, you can always go to patreon.com/nerdwide. 3 different tiers with 3 different monthly subscription values there. If you want to recommend shows, movies, books, games, all that, that is the place to go to do that. And if you want to get the episodes early, that's the way to do it as well. But let's see, Chris, did you have any time to watch anything else this week?
So, kind of tying to the Matthew Perry news, I have started to binge Friends.
Yeah,
because I haven't watched it in a while.
That used to be the show
on...
that I went to sleep to for years when it was on Netflix, like years.
Now it's on Max.
And, is it on Max?
It's on Max now.
I might have to switch back to that because it was on something that I didn't use. But if it's on Max now, or it might have went to Max after Netflix, I didn't have Max at the time. Because as Community, I've done for like 3 or 4 years in a row now, every single night. And I'm like, I want to change that. I went back to Parks and Rec, but it's got commercials on it because we've got Peacock and we're not paying for the big one. But if that's the case, I might go to Max. I'm actually doing that tonight. Good call. I've just been watching Invincible, other than our shows. That was caught up on it. I want to jump into it though. We're gonna start off with Gen V. It's, of course, spoiler filled. We're starting with episode 6, going to end on episode 8. But episode 6 is titled Jumanji. We're going to the reviewgeek.com for this one, and they are all by Fraser Fernandez. He has been killing it, and so let's just keep sticking with him. The episode begins with Kate returning everyone's memories. Andre expresses his distrust in her. She suddenly has hallucinations of Marie and Jordan guilt-tripping her and gets a stroke after a couple minutes. They realize her pulses drop and Marie uses her power to stabilize her blood flow. She is probably the most powerful superhero in this show, in this universe, because she can stop blood. I mean, we see something later on in the next episode that someone else has got powers like her, which blew my mind.
Yeah. But then thinking back about it, it made perfect sense.
Yep. And we'll talk about that when we get there. But her powers are pretty awesome.
And I'll say this: there's a reason that she gets attacked first by somebody that shows up later on.
Yes. And we are for sure talking about that. The scene switches to Dr. Cardoza and Indira entering Betsy's room as she profusely is coughing. Dr. Cardoza informs Indira about the performance of the virus and tells her to finalize the reports to be sent to Vought. Indira tells him to wait and concentrate the dose to see just how sick they can make these kids. The friends take Kate to a room. She suddenly wakes up and disappears. They see the room disintegrating and walk out. They come across a woman and a policeman calling out to Caleb, and they realize that they are in Kate's head. They see Kate approaching her mother and get told to keep her distance from her. Just then, Soldier Boy approaches them and tells them to quickly figure it out before she turns into a vegetable, and they all get stuck there. He tells them they have thunder in the sky as her blood vessels exploding, and they get struck down by lightning, and they leave. Did not see that coming whatsoever. And the comments he was making about Kate was some of the funniest things that I did not expect Jensen Ackles to say. It kind of caught me off guard.
How she would ride that pillow.
Right, dude. It was so good. And you know, we've been wondering of how they did, how he was going to come into the show. Because he, you know, we did see on the internet that he was in the show. And we were like, we've even talked about on this podcast of, well, how does that make sense? Because he's, you know, he's iced again unless they unice him and things like that. Well, it's just a hallucination. It's her imaginary friend since she was a kid. So, yeah, and other things.
More than a friend.
More than a friend here. Emma visits the drive-in and meets Sam. Despite being Sam's first time, things begin to escalate, and they have relations, which was very intense for all involved. The friends reach Kate's room where her mother allows Indira to meet Kate. They watch Indira comfort her and offer her some pills to make the sounds inside her head disappear. Suddenly, they find themselves in the classroom with Kate and Luke, where they become friends for the first time. Luke then goes on to play a clip of Andre hooking up with Kate while she is still his girlfriend. Luke attempts to shoot Andre but misses and hits Dusty instead. They realize their powers aren't working in Kate's head. The friends want to run away from there and reach Brink's office. Just then, Jordan arrives and listens to the argument between Brink and Luke. She then bursts in and puts the mask on Luke, making him fall unconscious. The friends come to know that Jordan chose not to do anything. So this is like a big reveal episode of things that happened essentially in episode 1 that we didn't really get to see. We find out that all these friends are still keeping secrets from each other. And we're 6 episodes into this, and we're seeing a lot of character development that we didn't know that already happened, which makes things kind of into focus. Like how Andre and Kate hooked up so fast after Luke's death.
Right.
And that was okay. So there was already something there before that happened. And the whole Jordan thing that kind of caught me off guard because they've been doing this to Luke for a while. And I think Luke got his memories back, and that's why he killed himself, because he's started to realize all this. Let's see. Emma and Sam have a great time. Sam, however, thinks he isn't good for her due to his hallucinations, but Emma convinces him that she still wants to be with him. Sam suggests that they run away together, but she changes her mind, claiming she knows of someone who can help them. The friends then find themselves in the basement where they are held captive. They see Luke and Sam unconscious, and with Dr. Cardoza and Indira running experiments on them. Luke wakes up, but Kate hesitantly steps up, wipes his memory, and puts him back to sleep. They then find themselves in Indira's office where she and Brink convince Kate that she is only helping Luke. Indira then turns towards them and tells Kate to wipe their memories. They make a run for it and see the door leading to Marie's childhood bathroom. Upon entering, they see a blood-covered bathroom and her sister sitting in the corner. Marie approaches her, but Annabeth only pushes her away, blaming her for what has happened. Marie looks up and yells at Kate for contradicting her own statements. They suddenly appear in front of Kate, and Kate gives them their chance to leave without her suggesting she will remain a vegetable in the real world. The friends try to convince her to wake up with them to get things fixed. They are successful, and Kate wakes up with them. Hindsight here, probably should have just left her.
Yeah, that probably would have been the best thing.
Yeah. Just as they wake up, Emma walks in with Sam. Sam takes a close look at them and recognizes Kate for the things that she has done. He attacks her while the others try to protect her. Emma steps in between them and pleads with him to trust her and let Kate go. They question Kate about Indira's intentions with the kids locked up in the basement, but Kate claims to have very little knowledge of it, which,
Don't
whatever.
believe her.
Yeah. The scene switches to Dr. Cardoza urgently calling Indira to show her that Betsy has died due to an increased dose of the virus. Indira is happy and asks him to make the virus contagious as the episode ends. God, what a show this is. This has been... I've really, really enjoyed this one. This is on par with The Boys for me. And which is nuts that a spin-off show would be this great as it is.
Yeah, and her desire there at the end to make this a contagious virus escalates.
Yeah.
in the next episode.
Well, and
Like she keeps asking for more.
yeah, and we're left with a, you're the dean of this school of soups, and you're making a virus to kill them, and you're wanting more. Obviously, as we talked about episode 7, Sick, she wants it airborne, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh god, she is. Who would she be really good friends with? Butcher. Did I think
Yeah.
he was going to appear in this episode? You damn right I did. But did he?
Yeah.
No, he did not.
No. But we have all the information now on why she wanted this, and it makes
Which
sense.
ties more into the boys, and like they just God, I'm so glad they feed off each other. All right, going back to Review Geek for this one as well. The episode begins with Andy incredibly sick from the virus, stumbling into the room full of soup teenagers with threatening their lives. Indira demands that Dr. Cardoza make the virus airborne. Just then, Indira gets a call from Kate requesting that they meet up, but Indira tells her to wait at her house while she meets someone in the city first. Kate assures her that she has taken her medication. Kate is able to hear everyone's thoughts, though, because she's obviously not taking the medicine. She tells them about Indira, but they treat her with animosity. Jordan storms out and Marie follows. They decide to find some evidence and take it to Victoria Newman, who is visiting the campus. I love the whole backstory still with Newman. Like, and like they're talking about the whole soups thing, the Soup Lives Matter, and all this stuff. It all came to a head in this episode. I really enjoyed how they did this. But there was a lot that happened this episode, and we're going to discuss it all. Let's see.
I do like how, too,
Go ahead.
with all this, it manipulates Sam.
Yes. Oh, poor Sam. Like, and he is just as strong as Homelander, too. And that's why they were pumping his blood into Luke. And, oh, man. Emma collects all of Sam's belongings to incinerate them and remove evidence of his escape. She instructs him to stay at home before leaving. Marie and Jordan go through Indira's room and find an article about an airplane crash in which her daughter and husband died. Interesting. We're starting to put some puzzle pieces together here for the viewer. Just then, Dr. Cardoza enters, drunk, mumbling, and cursing Indira's plans to too quickly hide and get an idea of what is really going on. Indira meets with Mallory, tells her about her plan, and asks for some help. Mallory rejects participating in this genocide. Sam hears some sounds from outside, opens the door thinking it's Emma. However, he sees some of the kids are having fun and they invite him to join in. He joins in playing games before leaving with them for a party after them convincing that Emma will be there as well. Let's backtrack to Mallory here. Yeah. This is where I thought Butcher was going to come into place. But I think having Mallory here makes it even better because she is the one with all the connections. And kind of, not really mastermind the whole thing, but she does have all the connections to all these people. But I want to know who she was talking to at the end. Because she calls somebody, she goes, hey, we need to keep an eye on this lady. And I don't know if it was one of the boys or if it was someone else we might be introduced to in season 4 of the boys, but I like to think it was Butcher on the other end. So
it would make sense.
Yeah, it would tie it more so together. Where the episode 8, the finale ends off, have that right pickup with Butcher at that scene, which we'll get to. But I think that'd be a great little, and like he'd be like, oh, I know, couldn't get to her in time. This is who he transferred it to, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see. All right. Polarity appears on television for an interview and gets a sudden attack. Andre sees this on television and rushes to take him to the hospital. Emma returns to her room and realizes Sam has run away. In the ambulance, Polarity has another seizure, causing everything around him to fly and hurting the EMS, which was a very, very cool scene to see that happen, like the ambulance start crushing in. But then to have Andre pushing out and even pushing the trucks beside them and the vehicles beside them away was very cool, very well done. The interview continues with Victoria Newman instead. She talks about the current situation and attempts to bring peace between humans and soups. Marie and Jordan arrive at the theater to meet Victoria, but they see guards at the entrance. Jordan says she's going to create a distraction, which lets Marie in after she picks a fight with some of the teenagers. The audience doesn't perceive Victoria's stance well and begins vandalizing and attacking Newman on the stage. The security escorts her out, and Marie manages to convince her to have a conversation. After the interview, Emma finds Sam in the commotion and takes him somewhere secure. Indira returns home and finds Kate sitting there without gloves. Indira insists she takes her pills, but Kate reveals they only cloud her thinking. We're about to hit like a whole lot of conversations here, so we'll stop once we get to some of these parts. Kate expresses her disappointment, but Indira assures her that she plans to leave and take Kate with her. She convinces Kate that she has a plan for both of them when she'll leave the mess behind and take Kate with her. She convinces Kate and tells her that she can read her mind and tell her that she's wrong, and tell her that she does not love her and that she does care for her. Which she does say, she goes, "Oh, you are right. You do care for me and you do love me." And it was at that moment I was like, "Oh my God, we're doing a double cross." But we'll get to that here in a second. But this is what I want to talk about. Victoria has a conversation with Marie and reveals that they have the same blood control powers. Marie reveals the plan she found out about, but Victoria advises her to leave the plan behind and focus on making it to the top 7 where she can really make more of a difference. Now, she also reveals that she's been the benefactor behind Marie the whole time and has been watching her life from the sidelines, which we had a conversation, maybe was it 2 episodes ago or last episode, who the benefactor was. Did not even think about Newman. But the fact that she can make people's heads explode is,
it makes sense.
I feel like they've been teasing us with this, but nobody connected the dots because that was awesome.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense for everything. She always knows when people are lying. She can do all this stuff, but she just doesn't. Where Marie started doing her powers, she would cut herself and use her blood powers to attack with her blood. Newman has figured out, like, oh, no, I don't need to do that. We can do this inside their body instead. And was awesome. Just so cool. And did not expect that at all. And I was very excited that they wrote it that way. Marie, Emma, Sam, and Jordan rush to Indira's house and find Kate and Indira. Kate makes Indira reveal the intentions behind her plan to eradicate all the soups. We don't even talk about it, of why she hates the soups at all. This review doesn't. But the plane crash was the very same plane at the end of episode 1, season 1 of The Boys, when Homelander tears that plane in half. Her son and her daughter and husband was on the plane. And she found that out, and now she's been hell-bent on eliminating every soup ever since. But this is one of those things, though. One soup has endangered me. I want them all dead kind of thing. And I'm like, a little extreme. That's what pretty much Mallory's doing as well. Not all soups are bad. And sure, Vought is a big issue here. But not all soups are bad, and we shouldn't kill everybody for the mistakes of, not mistake, but intention of one person. So. And
even Mallory has her limit.
Yeah, because genocide is not it. So, let's see. Kate makes Indira reveal behind her plans to eradicate all the soups. She then uses her powers to make Indira slit her own throat with a knife. She uses her powers to stop Marie from using her blood control powers to stop the bleeding and saving her life. Victoria meets up with Dr. Cardoza and takes the virus in a container from him. She compliments his work and makes his head explode before leaving to ensure no one who knows how to create the virus survives at the end of this episode. So I caught on, not quick, but it was nice because they briefly showed it, but didn't really show it, of Kate touching Marie as Marie was reaching out to save her life with her powers. Kate, they subtly showed it. Her reach out and grab her wrist and said, "Don't help her." I was like, ooh, all right. And they did such a good job with Kate. Like, even in this next episode, her CGI and makeup with the red on the outside of her irises and everything, like showing how much she's been pushing. So cool. Yeah. They did a really good job. This was a great episode. Like, all around, we got a lot of answers to a lot of things. And a lot of good cameos. We got Newman and Mallory cameos in the same episode. So,
right.
But I want to talk about it. Episode 8, titled The Guardians of Godolkin, Season 1 Finale. The episode starts with the death of Indira, leaving the students gathered around her. Kate hears the thoughts of her friends surrounding her. However, Sam sides with Kate and leaves her to free the woods. Emma stops Jordan from calling campus security, and the three of them head out to stop them. Andre learns from the doctor that a micro tear occurs in his neural pathways every time his father uses his powers. He is also informed that this damage is irreversible. He then talks to his dad, who tells him to call the costume manager to get his costume to fit Andre. So, we got a lot of cameos this episode. Obviously, it's what you would expect from this. Ashley and some of the other board members of Vought sit down to review the nominees to enter the Seven. Because admissions are low to Godolkin, they need public outcry, obviously because of what Homelander did at the end of episode of season 3 of The Boys. And so they kind of like briefly mention all this. But entering the woods, Sam kills off the first guard by just punching straight through his brain. And Kate makes a second one, unlock the cells, releasing the soups. Which I don't think it's going to say it in the review, but she didn't kill him, but she was horrible this episode. She made the dude eat his own hand. She says, release them, okay, leave us and eat your own hand. Or she says, eat your hand off or something like that. And I was like, God! And like he was still gloved and everything, and you can hear him chewing. He's like, oh my God! Oh, it's terrible. Sam walks into his old room and hallucinates seeing Luke. Luke tries to convince Sam to stop playing along with Kate's plan, knowing that it is not a good idea and is going to look unfavorably on him. The group stumbles upon Andy's body. Kate disperses the group to kill all the humans they come across. The Soups head out into the campus, killing every human that they find. Jordan, Marie, and Emma reach the woods to find the Soups have already been freed. Jeff comes face to face with one of the Soups, using a sonic whistle to give her a headache, and then kills her with an explosive placed in her mouth. Kate appears and uses her powers to get him to do a live stream. I was expecting him to be like a bigger player than they showed off here, because he was talking to somebody on the phone. I forget what he said. I need to go back and listen to it. But he said something, I'm like, oh, he's a bigger deal than what we're seeing here. But he wasn't. So, well, not yet at least. I imagine it'll be in season 2. They'll tell us something. Kate appears, uses her powers to get him to do a live stream. The board gets informed about the breakout. Kate gets Jeff to kill himself with an explosive just like he did earlier while live streaming it. The board gets to know the full extent of the breakout as they see blood splatter on their window. Sam enters and disrupts Bork's class and chokes him. I loved this scene with Bork. He is my favorite, and I'm so glad he's still in here. And of course, this is another cameo of him. And chokes him. Emma stops just in time and tries to make him stop, but Sam pushes her away, claiming she is selfish and trying to control him in her own way, and he walks away from her. Following that, Kate brings Andre up to speed with things and calls him to her. Imaginary Luke is still following Sam around, trying to change his mind, but he doesn't budge, even to the point that asks Kate to take away all of his feelings. Kate does so, numbing Sam's pain with her push powers, which is very good, very well done, because having Luke right there beside her, and I really like that we've had this actor and Luke pretty much in every episode since his death in episode 1. It's kind of a cool way to do it. I don't think we'll see him much in season 2, if at all. But besides that first little episode, maybe. Marie hits the button in Indira's room, putting the school in official lockdown. Just then, the sonic whistle turns on, giving the Soups severe headaches. Just then, Bork arrives in complete panic into the boardroom. One of the Soups lets out his scream, destroying all the speakers and stopping the sonic whistle. They call in help from the Seven and some helicopters. They grab the phones and make a call to the nominees, claiming whoever kills the rogue Soups will enter the Seven. Ashley gives a call personally to Marie, asking her to take down the students in exchange for entry into the Seven. Now, it was very funny because, they're going around killing humans. That's all they're killing. They're not killing Soups or anything like that. So someone on Reddit said, if I was at that university and I was human, and everyone started screaming from the little sonic burst, I would act like it was affecting me too. Oh, wait. I just thought it was very funny. It's very stupid. But, I mean, makes sense of survival here.
Yeah, because there's one of the first people killed is what's she, like a professor?
Yeah, she's a professor.
And they have to ask her, are you a soup?
Yeah,
And
she's like,
she's
oh
like,
no, I'm
no,
human. It had instantly killed.
just
Oh yeah,
lie.
it was the hand. It was the hand melting one, the face melting one. I
Yeah,
was like, this
yeah, yeah,
teacher
yeah,
just
yeah.
working, going from class to class, and gets just assaulted and her face melted off. God. Heading out, Marie uses her powers to make a soup fly into the helicopter blades, causing it to crash. Awesome. Awesome. Andre arrives as well and uses his telekinetic powers to make the helicopter land safely. Andre and Marie try to stop Kate, but she sends Maverick to fight Marie, which Maverick, got a nice little cameo here, translucent sun. Which, don't know
Hmm.
why I didn't put two and two together, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
Initially, Marie struggles, but she quickly uses her powers to locate him and knock him out. Jordan directs the board members to enter the helicopter. Andre tries to convince Kate to start over with him, and she agrees. Just then, Sam arrives out of nowhere and punches Andre. They begin to fight. Sam grabs Andre by the collar. Andre uses his powers to hold an electric button and shocks Sam with it, dropping them both to the ground. Marie approaches Kate and tries to convince her to stop the rampage, but Kate stands her ground. Just then, Marie sees that Soup's about to kill Jordan and uses her powers to kill one of them. Jordan tackles the others. She sees one of the Soups running towards the helicopter and uses her powers to create blood daggers and stabs them in the back. This was very messy and could have gone wrong. She
Hmm.
made tons of blood daggers and sent it straight to that helicopter, which I'm like,
Yeah.
those could have easily pierced through and killed everybody on board. But, let's see. Just then, Kate rushes towards Jordan with her hand stretched out, and Marie panics and makes her hand explode.
That was a great scene.
That was wonderful and very well done. Like she got very angry, was able to control her powers, does all this stuff right, and then reaches out instinctively, like we've seen her do in so many of the episodes, and not meaning to, and makes her hand explode, just like with Rufus's wing wing. Did not mean to make it happen, but still made it happen.
Rufus had it coming.
Yeah, that's a very valid point.
No pun intended.
No. Just then, we hear a sound in the sky and everyone looks up. Homelander flies into the scene and arrives and questions Marie for attacking her own kind. Marie tries to hold her ground and explain the situation, and Homelander lasers her in the chest, and the scene changes to Homelander watching the news from the tower. The news announces that Marie, Jordan, Andre, and Emma were the cause of the attacks, and were trying to frame Sam and Kate. But no, Sam and Kate are the saviors and the guardians of Godolkin. Marie wakes up with Jordan, Emma, and Andre in a room without doors. Billy arrives at the woods at the end. Billy arrives at the end of the episode. Wait, what?
Hmm?
Did I miss that? Was that like at a post credit or something?
Yeah.
Shut up. Butcher was in this episode?
Yeah. Butcher is at the very end
Shut
of the episode.
the front door.
Live on air, Tyler. Finds out Butcher's back.
I even scrubbed to see if there was a post credit scene. Oh God, are you? Okay, this is all right. So I got a lot of things to talk about with the ending of this episode, and a lot of people have been digging in and seeing the. And sorry, I'm gonna turn all this down. Skip that. I can't skip it. I'll wait for it to skip. And looking closely at this room that they're all in at the end.
Yeah.
So if you notice, though, no doors, obviously, but there is a hatch above them. So people are thinking, okay, maybe submarine or something like that. But Andre is on his phone.
For their
And,
cell service.
and right. And Emma is drinking a Starbucks cup. So they're clearly not confined. And everyone's thinking, oh, maybe it's not Vought who's keeping them. So someone raised that question up. But if you go to the scene and zoom in, God, what do we call those things? I already forgot. The gowns that they're wearing have Vought logos all over them. The hospital gowns, they're Vought logoed. So I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, I think because obviously we know that Homelander's out of control.
Right.
And everybody at Vought fears Homelander. And he didn't want these these members of God U doing what they were doing,
Right.
trying to save the day. He likes chaos.
Yeah.
So I think it is somebody at Vought. I think they know they're going to need them to save the day later, and they're keeping them hidden away. Probably this thing is lead lined so that Homelander can't find them. And they needed to keep them in there, especially until they're all awake, so that they can talk to them.
Dude, that scene is awesome. I am so mad that I did not know about that until right now.
I figured you knew.
Come on, man. What a God, that was great. Yeah, that would make sense. I can see Ashley doing that.
Yeah.
Um,
She's scared to death of Homelander.
yes, and I think that can help with that.
Or she and Newman
She could be
are
working together.
combining.
That would make sense because Newman. We do know Newman has a very keen interest in Marie. So, which is very. But like you were saying earlier, when Homelander lands, and he instantly went to the black teenager as the one instigating all this, show really shows where he is still, and his issues. I knew it wouldn't kill her, but I was kind of hoping she would stop his heart or something for a second, and then him take her out or knock her out or something like that. But like his eyes lasered up. I was like, okay, cool. She's going to like stop his heart or something, and he's gonna put some fear into him, but he's still gonna attack her and win. But maybe next season. But very cool. Wasn't really. I was hoping for a Homelander cameo. I was still surprised by it because like they made the little boom sound and then him landing on it and everybody looking up and landing was very cool. So,
see, I would have liked to have seen, like you were saying, have it look like she's got him.
Yep.
Like he's starting to feel his heart race or something, like his heart's getting ready to explode or something like that, and then all of a sudden he lasers her just for survival's sake.
Yeah.
And that would have been interesting too, because they're always talking about the opinion polls of the public, and we know a lot of the public doesn't like Homelander. Right. So that would have played well. It would have given her a whole new surge of popularity and even more reason for him to hate her.
Dude, that was very exciting though. And like it's so Vought and so this world to blame the trans kid, the black kid, the minorities, and then herald the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Kate, and I was like, that's so like on the nose and very much the boys, and I was very excited about it. But listen, like I said earlier, I was not expected to enjoy this season or this show as much as I did. And it's one that I desperately want back. But it's okay, though, because we're going to get the boys soon.
But now, how much is Kate weakened? Because one hand's gone. And
that's
as far
true,
as we know, it has to be her hands, right? It's not just skin-to-skin contact.
Right. And she has to have the intent to push. So, but she can hear voices.
Maybe her elbow.
And where are they at
her
now?
Her nub.
Their nub. It just touches people with the... Do you think her or Sam's going to be in the 7 when we come back to the boys season 4?
I kind of think, I wonder if we'll get a split where it'll be like you'll have the official 7, and then you'll have something similar to like the Dark Avengers where it'll be the Dark 7 that'll be out there. And Homelander will lead that group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I can't. Oh, it's gonna be so good though. I really.
Nerdwide will probably lead the official 7.
Yeah. We'll see. All right, so that's it. Gen V, season 1 done. We got a nice little break here of episodes before we start getting into like new stuff. Loki season 2 episode 5 titled "Science or Fiction." It's a little slash, technically. We're going to tvline.com, which is where we have been doing this with Rebecca Iannucci. Let me finish this right now. Okay. All right. The penultimate episode of Loki's second season arrived and burdened with a sizable task of explaining how Loki and co could possibly survive that blast at the end of the TVA. But as we come to learn, oh god, okay, we're doing a little editorializing here. All right, following the temporal loom's explosion, Loki found out that he was still standing at the TVA, but now alone, and not long after the loom went belly up, the entire TVA is getting spaghettified. But Loki also found out that he had started to time slip once again, which allowed him to visit all of his pals and attempt to get their help stopping the TVA's eventual destruction. Casey, aka Frank, was in the middle of escaping Alcatraz in 1962, which is a reference to a real historical event, by the way, but didn't recognize Loki when he first appears. Hunter B-15 was a doctor in 2012 New York City, but barely had a chance to recognize Loki before he time slips again. And Mobius, at long last, was working at a store selling jet skis in Pasadena, but also did not recognize Loki upon his arrival. And it made a very big point here that when you look at when I show the dates and times and where they were at, it says branched timeline. All of them are branched timelines. So we're not on the sacred timeline at all. Naturally, OB was the one to save the day here, not because he actually recognized Loki, but because he is a doctoral student pursuing theoretical physics and a part-time science fiction author. Loki's time-space dilemma was OB's Super Bowl, so after constructing his own makeshift TemPad, OB helps Loki convince the rest of the gang they could play an important role in preserving the existence of, Loki. Of existence. Loki, OB, Mobius, Casey, and B-15 agree together in one spot, which would allow them to recreate the same temporal aura they had right before the loom went boom. As long as Loki can learn to control his time slipping and will himself to a certain date and time, the entire group could go back in time to prevent the TVA's collapse. Had a lot of great moments, especially with Mobius here, or what was his name in here? Very just generic white guy name. I forget what it was. He said, "What'd you say my name was? Mobius?" Anyways, that was my Owen Wilson impersonation.
That's a cool name.
Yeah. And it was very well done. I thought there was something wrong during this scene when they went to his house because they were in the shadows of trees. I was like, something just don't look quite right here. But we haven't had an outside scene besides outside of McDonald's. That was kind of what was messing with me, unless it was nighttime. I was like, oh, okay. But it was very cool, their interactions here. And we finally get where the reference. Do you think these are all where they originally came from?
I don't know, because part of me was wondering when the explosion occurred, is this just where they ended up?
Right.
Like, did this just scatter people and, this is the timeline that survives that you landed on?
Right, and that's who they are in those timelines. Yeah.
Right. For Mobius, maybe, but then you wonder, was he thinking about jet skis all the time because of his original life? Or is he thinking jet skis now because he was obsessed with them at the TVA?
Ouroboros. Interesting. Let's see. But when Loki visited Sylvie on her timeline branch, she disagreed with Loki's objective. Why should he take these people away from their happy lives and force them to join the TVA? When both Loki and Sylvie used to hate the TVA for doing just that to its employees. Eventually, Loki realized that perhaps his main goal wasn't to save the TVA, it was simply to keep his new friends in his life because without them, he is alone. And that hit hard because that is what it's all about, essentially. I mean, with Loki, and it's not that he's still a villainous, mischievous god, but he's doing this because he doesn't want to be alone. And at the TVA and everything, he's alone, and he wants his friends there, which is crazy and so good. With that revelation in mind, Loki left Sylvie behind on her branch and returned to the others, telling them the mission was off and they should go back to their timelines and lives. But just as he was reassuring the group they'd be fine without the TVA existing, Sylvie appeared through a time door to say, actually, never mind, we need the TVA. Not long after Loki and Sylvie had entered their conversation, Sylvie's entire timeline branch had gotten spaghettified with zero explanation. Sylvie escaped the annihilation just in time, but she was now convinced that TVA does need to exist in order to prevent all the other branches from getting decimated too. So that scene in the record shop was so well done, and I don't know about you, but I actually felt fear when,
Yeah.
because she's listening to the music, which is a great song for this moment, but you can see the stuff starting to get spaghettified in the background, and then it comes towards her, and the guy calls her name out, and she hears him. She turns around and sees him get spaghettified, and the whole world around her. And just as she is about to be, she uses her temp pad, which is very good too. Which kind of backs up your point, because everyone got exploded to where they want to be in the timeline. Because she went to where she was working at McDonald's and everything. She kept her memories, and she was the only one though. But she's a god, so
Right.
is where I believe is what happened. Loki's intense desperation not to lose his people had finally allowed him control his time slipping, letting him choose where and when to end up when he traveled through existence. Quote, "It's not about where or when or why, it's about who," Loki told Obi and the others. "I can rewrite the story." And with a flourish of his arms, Loki brought himself back to the TVA moments before the temporal loom went off the rails. We are about to get some crazy things this week for the finale. I think he is going to rewrite everything, and there are people online trying to theorize what's going to happen, and I don't know. Maybe Loki is he who remains secretly, and it's all how it's supposed to be because now he can create it all and time slip. So.
Well, they're pointing out too. Let me pull this up. Right now in the comics, there's a story going on with Loki, and he's known as Loki, the god of stories.
See, I think I've read that as well, and that is nuts.
So, yeah. So I'm wondering if they're going to tie it to that. I have no idea what this
drive some comic sales up, and
right.
It's very convenient because he says this last thing that he says is, "I can rewrite the story," and I'm like, how much do you rewrite, and who do you rewrite? I don't know. So, God, this next episode is gonna be really good though, and it's gonna be one that I think everyone's gonna have to watch when it comes out. Unfortunately, though, Chris, we'll be at the movie theaters, so when this releases.
Yeah, well, yeah, because they used to drop them at midnight.
Yeah, now they drop them at I think it's like 7 o'clock our time.
Yeah.
So.
So we actually, depending, because I sent you a text saying Loki ends the day before the official debut of the Marvels in theaters, so these could be connected.
Right.
We could get spoiled on the final episode of Loki.
If they do connect it.
If they do connect it. But I even went back and rewatched the Marvels to see exactly how it looks when they exchange places with each other. Because I was like, maybe that's a form of time slipping. And
yeah.
You know, but I don't know. Maybe it is, and maybe it's going different because technically they're all a Marvel. Right. And the universe isn't able to figure out which one's supposed to be where, so they're just kind of popping in and out of each other's realities.
I do hope, as much as it'll kind of suck for us, I do hope they do connect it to Loki and the Marvels, because we really haven't had any of the TV MCU connect to the MCU proper. Like, really connect. And I'm like, guys, this is your property. We're going to have to do this. I mean, we've got She-Hulk that kind of connects because we had Wong, but Wong mentions none of it during Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness at all. So I'm like, we got to connect things here.
You had Wong and Abomination.
Right.
Which kind of connected it.
Which they were in Shang-Chi, which connected a little bit. But I mean, that's it. So, listen, we got one more episode of Loki left, though. And this season is an absolute banger. And I can't wait for more of it. But
even if we get spoiled, it'll still be interesting to see exactly how it happens.
If anything,
Although
we
we
could just sit there and
probably,
watch it on our phones out in the parking lot.
well, because the movie's at 7:30, right?
Yeah.
So it's half an hour into the episode. So
Well, you know they don't start the movies at exactly their time anyway, so we can be sitting there watching the previews and everybody's like, shut up,
yeah,
shut up, shut
instead
up,
of
shut up.
you're spoiling it for me. I can hear it.
We all have to press play at the same time. Goosebumps episode 4 titled Go Eat Worms. This is the only show we are not catching up on this week. But next week we are catching up on all of it and we'll be ready to go with it. Season 1, Episode 4, going back to ReviewGeek.com by Fraser Fernandez, Go Eat Worms. We start off with Lucas preparing for the booms of doom before he changes his mind. Nora wakes up with Colin and expresses her thoughts about their secret relationships. They then proceed to leave. Lucas admires his dad's work as a stunt rider in his room and then proceeds to make an eyeball roll out from near his feet. He keeps it with him and goes out seeing his mother with Colin in his car. He takes a picture on his phone. On his GoPro. The scene cuts to the children interacting with their parents. However, it doesn't seem to go well due to the recent events. Lucas vaguely confronts his mother about what he has witnessed, but she still denies what she was doing and lies about her mourning. Mr. Bratt has a discussion with Colin, requesting mental health leave, claiming he couldn't deal with the strain of his friend's disappearance. Considering all of Mr. Bratt's sick leaves were over, he refuses to grant him any more absences. Leaving the office, he spots Lucas with the eyeball and realizes Nora has his friend. The friends meet up to discuss the recent happenings and question Margot about her mother's return. Margot has no clue about it and suggests I speak to her dad about it instead. Later, Lucas awkwardly invites Margot to his room and shows her the picture that he took earlier that morning. They head into his room and he shows her the picture he took. Both of them are devastated to see their parents together and sneaking around. He then tries to make her feel better and eats a worm in the process. Listen, we were eating pizza during this whole scene, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Not so much
Could've been
this
worse,
one. It was the next one.
Could have been spaghetti.
Could have been. That would have been a lot worse. You're right. Right before reaching her house, they run into Isaiah, who asks her if she's ready to speak to her dad about the recent happenings. She refuses without stating the reason and walks away. Just then, Lucas' stomach starts growling and starting to be upset. He runs away. That night, the worms work together and creep out of the tank, entering Lucas's orifices. The next morning, he wakes up hungover and heads for breakfast. He is unable to eat the burrito prepared by his mother. He throws it in the trash, but then he begins to eat the vegetables left inside it instead. Later that day, yes, that was. Later that day, he accidentally gets shoved down the stairs and walks away uninjured and with no pain. He then punches his locker and then jams his hand shut in the locker, only to realize they break, but they all healed up again. Margot shows up to check on him, and he gives a speech about feeling numb. After that, Margot walks into a meeting of them discussing Allison's participation in their investigation group. Everyone tells Isaiah off about it, but just then Allison walks in, and Isaiah claims they wanted to talk to her about what happened in the forest. The group, however, shoves her out of the meeting. Isaiah follows her to make up for it, claiming that he was faithful and Margot had only helped him cheat on a test. Not her.
What an idiot.
Yeah. Not you. Oh, like Allison was just a grade A. Anyways, she doesn't believe him and walks away. Isaiah sees Lucas dragging his bike up the stairs to the top of the roof. Allison walks in Colin's office to complain to him. Isaiah discusses Lucas's actions and gets to know Lucas ate a worm the previous day, which he got from the Biddle house. They realize he is in great danger. Just then, Margot gets called to the student counselor's office and questioned about the cheating. She admits to it and claims she knows about him cheating on her mother, which I knew as soon as that happened. I was like, oh, this is getting thrown back into his face.
Yep.
I do think, though, that they have had discussion and they are splitting up, but they're not really telling Margot yet. And
so
it's not really cheating, but they're
I'm an episode ahead of you.
Okay. Is that theory correct?
Not quite.
Okay. All right. Margot they realize the commotion outside and head out to convince Lucas not to ride his bike off the building. He doesn't hesitate and rides off the building to land on Collins' car, trashing it. Colin scolds him, threatening he is suspended permanently, and Beck answers, warning him to stay away from his mother. Margot follows him and notices his broken shoulder. She recommends he goes to the doctor, but he heals his shoulder and shows it to her. She sees worms crawling under his skin. Then he tells her that he is leaving for the booms of doom. Margot rushes to tell. That was a very cool scene, by the way. The worms. I don't know how he broke his shoulder though, unless he, like, anyways.
I thought it would have just been dislocated.
Yeah, but I don't know. Just then, the ground begins to vibrate, and a large number of worms begin to come together. Oh, whoa. I skipped a paragraph. Margot rushes to tell Nora about everything, and they rush to the booms of doom to stop him. They reach him just in time to plead with him to stop. She reveals a note from his father, claiming he knew he would never make the stunt, and with intentions to kill himself. This shatters Lucas. He then vomits out all the worms and hugs his mother.
She reveals that there was a note. She doesn't reveal the note.
Right. She
doesn't show it to him.
Yeah. She feels it was a suicide letter, and
because he doesn't believe her at first.
Yeah.
What exactly are the booms of doom?
I just thought it was just the trail, maybe. I don't.
Because I'm trying to. It's down by the river.
Right. What makes it a boom?
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, she tells Lucas, your father didn't come down here and do this because he thought he would be successful. He came down here because he knew he wouldn't be.
God, that was beautiful. And the actress that plays Nora, who's in literally everything, did such a good job. Her line delivery here. I mean, even the actor, Lucas's actor, which we've talked about, I think the first 2 episodes we talked about, of how great the casting is for this whole show. Especially with Justin Long, which we didn't really get a whole lot this episode.
I will say this, her name, the actress who plays Nora.
I should know this by memory because she's in everything.
She's in everything. You're right.
Lucifer.
Rachel Harris.
Yes, Rachel Harris.
Rachel Harris. Like I said, I'm an episode ahead of you. Very good performance.
Oh God, I'm just so excited to watch it because we've got to watch like 4 episodes or something like that. 3 episodes. I don't know how we're behind, but. Just then, the ground begins to vibrate and a large number of worms begin to come out together and form a huge monster. Lucas instructs the women to head out in the car and takes his bike down the Booms of Tomb trail with the monster following him. So dumb. This made me crack up. So he's not going to go down the Booms of Doom because it's going to hurt himself. You know, his father did it to kill himself. Oh, but we got this monster coming. I'm going to go down anyways. So.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like he has any issues.
Any troubles whatsoever.
So that's why I'm trying to figure out what it is. Because it's got to be, maybe that trail just goes to it.
Yeah, the wind was right here, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Because the very beginning of the episode, he said, wind's not right, and leaves. So, I don't know. Let's see. He drives the bike into an abandoned warehouse and instructs his mother to start the crusher while he keeps the worm monster engaged. This is the only scene in the whole episode I did not like, was this whole warehouse scene, because it is very unbelievable for me as a viewer of him driving over the conveyor belts. And anyways, he drives around the factory to keep the monster distracted while his mother, Margot, gets the machine started. With a worm monster following him, he drives the bike into rotating blades and jumps off the shaft, saving himself. The worm monster gets dragged into the crusher, rendering them all safe. Later that day, when the police arrive, Nora decides she is tired of lying and tells the police the truth. We switch to the scene and she ends up in a psychiatric lockup with Victoria on the other side of the door. Come on. Who didn't think that was going to happen? Mr. Bratt visits the sawmill and rejoices at finding the eyeball Lucas had. He whispers a prayer, promising he'll put Slappy back together.
I love how, like, he's mentioned Slappy.
Yes.
But the other characters, they just have mention of him.
Yep.
Like the parents, him. Mm-hmm. He wants him back. And I'm glad that they're not just throwing the word Slappy around, because I think it kind of brings a little bit too much humor to it.
Yes.
Because it is a funny name. And
this is a very real issue here. Yeah. But I want to know how does Nora have Slappy? Or maybe do each of them have a piece of it, Slappy?
Yeah, because he found the eyeball in the shed.
Mm-hmm. Which was his father's.
Or did he find it? Did it actually roll out on its own?
Yep.
So somebody's got. The parents have secrets.
Yes.
The children are paying for the sins of their parents. And you see some stuff in the next episode that kind of pulls this together.
Good, because I'm ready for it all to be pulled in.
Yeah.
So, but speaking of being pulled in, though, Chris, we've got 2 episodes to talk about of Doom Patrol, which the last one, the penultimate, was so damn good, and I can't wait to talk about it. But before we get there, we're going to go to Season 4, Episode 10, titled Tomb Patrol. Tomb, T-O-M-B. We're going to geekgirlauthority.com. This is by Melody McCune for our recap. Let's see. All right, here we go. We open with the Bunt Hunter, played by Tommy Snyder, running through the streets of Cloverton. He spots a lone werebutt and blasts it to Kingdom Come. Then another werebutt appears, and this one can talk. Teddy, who is voiced by Dylan Saunders, tries to rally the Butt Hunter to his cause. A whole host of the terrifying creatures make their grand entrance, much to the Butt Hunter's dismay. However, he agrees to help the talking werebutt, the leader. Meanwhile, Vic pops into Star Labs to visit old Pop Silas as they chat with his son about his future. Vic notes how strange it is that he wanted to extricate himself from the cyborg tech, yet after losing it, he's still being a superhero. Their conversation perfectly encapsulates the evolution as father and son through the series, especially Silas, who regrets his decision to force the cyborg tech on Vic. This is a very good episode for character building and resolution of a lot of things. At Doom Manor, Laura tries to bar Isabel Feathers and Mortis from entry into the house. However, Izzy just wants to invite her to her one-woman show, which she's performing that evening, hoping it hits Broadway next week. Then we see Larry digging a hole in the backyard next to the garden. Rama asks Larry why he's digging a grave. We see blood seeping through the bandages on his arm. His body is slowly breaking down. Rama reveals he has plans to travel to his birthplace and to go on the Bay of Bengal. Like Larry, his body is on its last legs. He's as combustible now as ever. Rama urges Larry to accompany him. They can leave this world together. However, Larry wants to ensure Keeg is cared for before he goes. Meanwhile, Rita is making dinner for the house. Laura walks in after Rita allows herself to become a blob. It helps with her arthritis pains. I really enjoyed that scene.
Yeah.
Let's see. Laura tells her about Immortus' invitation. Perhaps they can kill Immortus and begin their longevity and get their longevities back. But Rita wants nothing to do with it. She wants to enjoy what little time she has left with her family. She is learning to accept her fate. Later, Jane examines her reflection in the mirror. Like Rita, she too is showing a lot of signs of aging. She notices. Then she notices she can put the puzzle pieces together, the ones on her floor. Jane winds up in the underground, finally, but to her horror, Jane finds piles of ashes representing Kay's other alters, from Hammerhead to Pretty Polly. What has happened? While there, Jane flashes to last week's episode, Immortimus Patrol, where she sang and danced with Casey. She also spots Kay sitting in her room constructing a puzzle when her father appears in the doorway. She's having little flashbacks, and they're saying, "Say it. Say it." Cliff pulls her out of the underground. He asks her if she wants to accompany him to Florida to visit Clara and Rory. They can blow shit up while they're there. Jane agrees that alone. Later, she agrees on that alone. Later, Laura calls for a house meeting. Vic is out of town, and Jane refuses to waste time with the little time she has left, so it's only Lyra, Rita, and Cliff. Laura shows him a picture of the necklace Niles Calder used to wear. It's one that contained a part of Immortus. Then Laura reveals a massive skin tag that is on the back of Immortus' neck, similar to the shape of Niles' necklace. Laura, which is very funny, a lot of them grossing out about this thing, because it was very gross.
It looks like a skin turd.
Yeah, it was so gross. Laura theorizes they could kill her by removing it, and the act of her death will return all their longevities. Unfortunately, nobody's on board with this plan. They also accuse Laura of stepping out on them, as they all saw in their futures. Let's see. Meanwhile, at Star Labs, Vic and Silas discuss their grief over losing Vic's mom. We get beautiful performances from both Wade and Morris here. Vic shows the sketches he and Derek drew of Vic's new and improved cyborg tech, and Vic wants his dad to perform the procedure. Next, we see Cliff and Jane are on the road, driving slowly to Florida. Jane urges Cliff to put the pedal to the metal. However, Cliff's leg becomes frozen in place due to his advanced aging and Parkinson's. Jane pulls the emergency brake before they almost crash, and Jane declares she's driving for the rest of the trip. Isabel performs her show at the Cloverton Theater. The audience watches as she bursts through her mother's vagina and showcases the various stages of her life leading to her trip to the time hole upon Laura's arrival. Dude, this was so good. Like, at the end of it, she asked what everyone thought of it, and everyone hated it and was laughing. I was like, I thought this was very funny. I thought it was good.
She's like, so you think it's ready to open tonight?
Right, they all start laughing. Let's see. After the performance, Isabel asks the crowd for feedback. We see Laura sitting in the back observing. Nobody gets in the crowd what Immortus is trying to do. They also don't feel her show is ready beyond this workshop rehearsal. Irritated, Isabel waves her hand, causing the audience to vanish. Laura emerges, revealing she empathizes with Isabel's struggles. Later at home, Dr. Margaret Yu meets with her where-but love, which was a very callback from the very first half of the season that I didn't really remember much about. But like after we started watching, I was like, oh, okay, I remember all this now. Nicholas, who is voiced by Jimmy Smagula, she reads a letter from Teddy, who Nicholas thought was dead. I loved and lost it a lot during this episode, when they're having this whole subplot going on throughout the episode of Teddy and Nicholas the Werebutts. It's just so stupid. Yeah. It's so Doom Patrol. It's why I love this show. Teddy urges Nicholas to join the revolution. It's time to rise up. However, Nicholas merely wants to live a quiet life with Margaret. Suddenly, after reading the letter, Margaret transforms into a werebutt. She said, I can't stop it. I just can't stop it. So... meanwhile, on the road, Jane discloses to Cliff her belief that she has dementia. While driving, she starts hearing voices in her head and flashing back to Immortimus and Kay with her father. Cliff places a hand on Jane's shoulder. Jane looks at him, but she only sees Kay's father, and Jane veers off the road. Cliff gently suggests that they head back home. Neither of them is physically and mentally up to a long road trip, which Jane agrees. Laura and Isabel lament on their similar situations. Kids, this is a prime example. Okay, let's skip through the editorializing. Laura wonders how long she'll have to eat crap before the Doom Patrol finally accepts her. She reminisces about her time with the Brotherhood of Evil. Sure, she's no longer a villain, but she misses the camaraderie. This gives Immortus an idea. What if she pivots to being a true antagonist? Laura could be her sidekick. Then Immortus can force everyone to love her. Then Lara joins Rita at the dinner table. Even though he can't eat, Rita's disappointed in the group for not attending her dinner. Larry wonders why Rita's attitude has changed so significantly. Usually she would be fighting tooth and nail to save all their skins, but Rita's all acceptance these days. The conversation takes a turn for the series as Rita weeps weeps at how often she stuck her neck out for everyone. She hasn't even received much of a thank you. Nobody asks how she's doing, and Rita storms off. We also learned that a lot of this big thing is because she was not elected leader of the group. They elected Laura, and she's still pretty hurt about that. Understandably so, though. Let's be honest. Meanwhile, Margaret explains that Teddy turned her into a werebutt before she realized what was happening. Nicholas wants to exact vengeance against Teddy for doing this. Margaret insists he's no better than Teddy if he goes down that path. He must prove to her that he's the opposite of Teddy. So dumb. I love it. Later, Larry brings Rita another drink and fixes her record player. They sit together. Cliff and Jane join them, revealing they decided not to travel to Florida. Our quartet reminisces together, including the adventures we've seen on screen over the seasons. Admittedly, this seems weepy. Let's see. Then we show a scene of Jane's room where two puzzle pieces move together of their own volition. Upon realizing that Laura went to Cloverton Theater alone to save them, Rita tries to rally her pals to come to Laura's rescue. Disappointed in their response, Rita departs by herself. Unfortunately, she collapses before she's even able to leave the room. At the theater, Isabel and Immortus plans her rise to power. Laura spots the skin tag on Isabel's neck. She mulls over whether she should strike. Larry, Cliff, and Jane decide to save Laura in honor of Rita, then leave Rita in her bed and head into town. Our trio parks in front of the theater. Suddenly, a bevy of humans, led by Teddy appears. They transform all into werebutts. Thankfully, Vic, aka Cyborg again, comes to their aid. shoots one with the cannon and says, "Booyah! He is back." Laura transforms her arm into a blade to chop off the skin tag. Isabel freezes her in place. Meanwhile, the others lock the door after seeking shelter into the theater. The werebuds try to claw and bite their way inside. They see Laura and Immortus on stage. She reveals she has an idea to give our heroes more time, and Immortus conjures a portal in the middle of the theater. Then she tosses Jane, Cliff, Vic, Larry, and Laura into the portal as the episode ends. Very good episode with all of our heroes together and realizing essentially all hope is lost and they're all just going to stay as a family and all die together. But is that really what's going on now?
Nope.
Doom Patrol Season 4 Episode 11 titled Portal Patrol. Going back to Geek Girl Authority by Melody McCune again. Let's see. We open with Jane, Vic, Laura, Cliff, and Larry falling through the time stream after Immortus tossed them through a portal. It's not looking good, folks. Thankfully, Vic's new and improved cyborg tech saves the day. His updated grid creates a small pod to protect them in. Now, I'm going to forewarn everybody, I absolutely loved this episode. So I do have some blinders on for it. While inside, Vic concocts a game plan to get them back home. Firstly, there are tons of portals through which they could enter that grid has... No. Secondly, Keeg left Larry's body and surveys the area, finding bits of longevity on the other side of different portals. Vic believes that they split up, they can retrieve the longevities, use them to save Rita and themselves. He plans to stay in the pod, where he can send out SOS to all parts of the time stream, hoping that someone will respond. Jane grabs Larry's hand out of fear, so they leap from the pod together through a portal. Meanwhile, Cliff and Laura enter separate gateways. Laura winds up in the ant farm in 1949, where she spots a door with the tag Project Immortus and Niles Calder. It's time to reunite with the Chief. At the same time, Jane and Larry arrive at the Doom Manor in 1996. They see Cliff standing in an empty room, staring listlessly out the window. This is when Niles informs Cliff that his family is dead, even though Clara did survive. Jane and Larry temporarily part ways. Next, Cliff lands in a bar in Paraguay in 1948. We see Niles reunite with Willoughby Kipling, which was, of course, played by the phenomenal Mark Shepard, who's also in everything, who drinks the place dry. Niles is on the run from the Heinrich von Wusch Nazi henchman. Did you like that? That was perfect German.
That was very good. Yeah. All you have to do is sound like you're hacking up a loogie.
Yep, and it works. He boasts his fragment of Immortus as a necklace. Suddenly, Niles meets Cliff, who's notoriously very anti-Chief. Cliff explains that Niles will create him and the rest of the Doom Patrol in the decades to come. Of course, though, Willoughby comprehends the implications about learning about the future before it happens and explains how dangerous it is. Cliff needs the Immortus necklace for apparent reasons. Niles pulls a knife on Cliff, which seems pretty pointless. Cliff attempts to harm Chief by squeezing his neck. However, Willoughby casts a spell to freeze Cliff into place. Meanwhile, Larry runs into an adult version of the negative spirit he used to have from season 3, I think.
Yeah.
Naturally, Keeg is drawn to him. Larry notices the bandages on his face are bloody, an unfortunate symptom of dying. He sees another version of himself emerge from the greenhouse. This Larry's eyes are glowing blue, and the negative spirit has taken control over him. Then Jane discovers all the tapes from Niles' conversations with Kay's alters. Niles, in a wheelchair at this point, finds her and wonders why she's rapidly aging. Jane explains she's from the future where they no longer have their longevities. Which I don't think it's, no, it doesn't have it in here. Which is very funny because we see the conversation. This is after the Cliff stuff, this timeline with Jane. And it's very funny because he makes a comment of, he goes, oh, I always, I was told that I have to drink this thing to wipe my own memory because knowing your future is a very dangerous thing, which is the verbatim of what Willoughby said. Very cool that they did that.
Right.
Let's see. So he wonders why she's rapidly aging. Jane explains she's from the future where they no longer have the longevities. In the time stream, Vic sends out incessant SOS calls, hoping a helpful soul will answer. At the ant farm, Laura transforms into a rat and scurries under the door. She sees Niles conducting experiments for, you guessed it, Project Immortus. Later, Jane tells Niles she doesn't have access to the underground or her fellow alters anymore. She also can't solve the puzzles in her room. Perhaps snagging the Chief's pretty Immortus necklace will solve all that. Meanwhile, in Paraguay in 1948, Cliff tries to persuade Niles to give him the fragment. He discloses that the people he loves, the Doom Patrol, are in trouble. They're dying. Cliff reveals that Niles has royally screwed them all over. Therefore, he owes them this much. Of course, we know Niles has saved the Immortus fragment so he can live longer for Dorothy. Next, we see Derek teaching his robotics club in Detroit. Vic communicates with a small robot on Derek's desk. What was it? Mr. Invincible? I think is what the robot's name was. Which is a callback to earlier in the seasons as well. At the ant farm in 1949, Laura knocks Niles unconscious and transforms into him as a version of herself enters the room. 1949, Laura wants to join Project Immortus, feeling her talents are well suited. However, present-day Laura as Niles discourages her from participating. Our Laura proceeds to leave the room as a rat. Then, 1949, Laura captures her, realizing something was amiss from their conversation. Meanwhile, 1996, Larry gives our Larry extra bandages for his bleeding face. Our Larry wants Keeg to stay with this Larry in the adult negative spirit, which is Keeg's father. Unfortunately, 1996, Larry declines to help Keeg. Inside Doom Manor in the same year, Jane and Niles discuss the problem at hand. Jane reveals that Chief isn't alive in her timeline. He keeps a glass of magical beverage courtesy of Willoughby that can erase his memories. Okay, so they do mention it. They chat about Jane's purpose. Maybe she's meant to help the other alters find peace. However, Niles divulges that Jane may never discover that peace herself. Vic realizes that during his conversation with Derek that he's talking to his friend from the future. Vic has influenced the robotics club significantly, teaching one exceptionally bright student everything he knows. In 1948, Paraguay, Niles removes Cliff's hand from his neck. Niles apologizes for what he'll do to him in the future and his friends. However, he is not that man yet. Suddenly, Von Fuchs, henchmen burst into the bar entrance. They're after the Immortus necklace and armed with weapons that fire an electrical charge. Of course, that means deadly for Cliff. Cliff begs Willoughby to remove the freezing spell. After this, Niles kills one of the henchmen with a knife and encourages Cliff to take out the other one. Next, Cliff ejects the other from the bar with a powerful kick. Niles is impressed. At the ant farm, our Laura reverts to her human self while in 1949 Laura interrogates her. Our Laura reveals that she's there to help her friends. She's on her path of redemption. 1949 Laura insists that they don't need redemption. They're good, right? Meanwhile, Willoughby and Niles help Cliff to his feet after he freezes due to his Parkinson's. Very cool scene of that, by the way. Then one of Von Yuck's henchmen storms the bar, sending an electrical blast towards the chief. Cliff throws Niles out of the way. Niles hits the bar with a thud, snapping his spine. So this is how it happens. Willoughby uses a clever spell involving a liquor bottle to choke the life out of the henchman. Anyway, Cliff panics, realizing he's responsible for paralyzing the chief. However, he has a mission to do. Cliff grabs the Immortus necklace. Willoughby chastises Cliff for stealing from a dying man, so Cliff returns it. A lot of heart-wrenching and good character building for Cliff was during these scenes, especially with him realizing that he's the one that paralyzed Niles back in the day. It really kind of broke him.
We don't see it, but do you think that Niles gave him some of that drink to wipe his memory so that he didn't remember?
Yeah, I think that's what happened.
He did this.
And it's because he said that, Willoughby said the whole time, you can't mess with the future and you can't really know about it because it's very destructive. And especially with him having that concoction in the future, I think it's safe to assume that. At the ant farm, our Laura punches 1949 Laura. In the future, Derek and his students work out a way to save Vic. The Vic at that time enters the classroom in his signature red tracksuit. He tells his past self that the calculations devised by the student will pan out. Why? Because he checks everyone's work, which lets you know he's a teacher in the future, which is very, very cool. Our Laura beats the snot out of 1949 Laura, grabbing the weapon stamp and smacking it against her head multiple times.
They kind of... This is a point where I was disappointed in the show. Because that's her.
Right.
So I was hoping as she hit her in the head with that stamp, because you start to see the word where she's hitting her. I was hoping it would start to appear on her future self that's doing the hitting. Like, okay, you've got scars from that.
Right.
They didn't go that far.
So let's see. It's a haunting moment, acted beautifully, of course, by Gomez. I completely agree with this author. A portal appears right after our Laura tells 1949 Laura that she hates her, after Laura falls through it, which is it's very good character building. We're getting her expression of what she really feels for once. Because she usually hides behind her persona and everything else like that. But she's like, no, I hate you for who we are. It's so good though. After returning the Immortus necklace, a portal materializes in the bar for Cliff. He too falls through it. In 1996, our Larry learns he'll experience a new life with Keeg. They'll become some kind of a son or the son. We really don't know what it is. 1996 Larry is pretty vague. Before our Larry could get clarification, he sucked into the portal that forms behind him. I thought it was very good because baby Keeg flew into adult Keeg, or the negative spirit, and they talk for a good little bit, and then comes in, and the adult one's like, "Oh, everything's going to be okay," and then looks up to the sun. I was like, "Okay," and very much how poor Larry's been treated. Everything is vague for him, and he's got to figure it all out on his own. Which is very good to see 1996 Larry to this one, especially with the negative spirit. Because remember in season 1 they hate each other, and like he can't control the spirit, and it's so good. Let's see. Jane tells Niles that she's made progress befriending the other lunatics in this house. Niles musings that the others are extensions of her own purpose. If Jane lets it out, perhaps it'll free her to do more than she could have imagined. What if Jane solving her puzzle will free Kay to search for peace? After all, Kay created Jane and the other alters. Niles insists that Kay was the one who endured the actual trauma. Suddenly, Kay and the alters appear behind the chief. They urge her to say it. Jane admits she was raped by her father, asserting that it happened to all of them. We didn't know this, right?
It was alluded to.
Okay.
Right.
But because what's crazy, that's how trauma is formed. I think I remembered it being like she was being beat by her father. I didn't think it was her being raped. And her saying this was just such a, like, I don't know. It's like when you have a problem, like with alcohol or anything like that, and you accept it and learn it about yourself. It was very well done, this scene. The music was great. The acting was top-notch from everybody involved. Sorry that happened to all of them. This is a huge moment, as we've never heard her acknowledge this. It explains the flashbacks to that moment she was having in last week's episode. Guerrero, who plays Jane, really shines in this episode, delivering an understated, nuanced, and achingly vulnerable performance. I completely agree. And the author says Jane has come a long way in this series. Suddenly, the last piece of the puzzle materializes in Jane's hand. The puzzle appears on the table. She puts the last puzzle piece in, and the completed puzzle piece emits a kaleidoscope of colors. She's healing. Next, Jane returns to the underground where Kay and the alters are waiting for her. The train is functioning again. Those same kaleidoscope colors appear on the train's windows as they ride from the train station. The station starts crumbling behind them, and Kay insists that they don't need it anymore. They are all together now. That is until the portal appears behind Jane, and she vanishes. After that, we see 1996 Niles at the table where Jane was. He looks at the Willoughby's memory erased concoction. He doesn't drink from it, but he smiles. Our heroes return to the pod that's free-falling through the time stream, where they reunite with Vic. None of them retrieve the bits of longevity they were sent to fetch, but not all is lost. Jane's on the pathway to healing, as is Laura. Larry discovers he might have a new purpose, and Cliff appears to have softened more a little bit towards the chief. In an uncharacteristic move, Jane delivers the pep talk. Everything waiting for them in Clovington, the Werebutts, Immortus, and their seemingly inevitable death, they can face it down together. Who knows, maybe they can save the world and themselves. Cliff, Larry, and Vic agree to it. They combine forces and to kick ass one last time. God, what a phenomenal episode with so much character building and things that we have been building towards from season 1 and things that have happened since season 1. Everyone's attitudes towards each other, what we've built since then, and just all come into play. And it's just crazy because Laura, we've only had her since season 3. And so technically half of the show she's been in. And I felt like all of her stuff was justified. It was just all so damn great. Like, oh, man, like with Titans, I am not ready for the show to end. I do feel like it's one of the best DC properties and content that they have. And I hate that it's ending, and I hate that it got the treatment that it did. Because this show is so good, and it is not promoted anymore like Titans. And especially since, like, it reminds me of like the whole James Gunn thing of we didn't even know when this season was going to come back, when the half of the season
Right.
was. Like I just felt like it was just shelved and just said, we'll get to it when we get to it. And I'm like, I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like this show deserves what it's got. And much like with the Titans, I don't think it's deserved to just be on there just to die and be put away.
Speaking of, do you think the team survives? Does someone sacrifice themselves?
I I think everybody obviously we see Vic live, which of course they have stated the timelines can change because we have changed from the very first part of the season. I could see Vic being one of the only people that lives. Larry and Keeg somehow become I think they do become the sun. Somehow Immortus says, forget it. I'm going to destroy it. Destroys the sun. They become the sun. And that's that. Jane, I can see dying because we have concluded her story. Cliff, kind of the same way. Actually, I could probably see him, Vic, and Rita potentially being the last ones alive. Because you think Rita's not there, she's still at the Doom Manor. But I think everybody else will probably die, including Laura, unfortunately.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot can happen. I mean, this is a crazy show. Like anytime with like these comic book style shows, we just don't know, and like, there's so many routes they can go with it. And
maybe we'll get Mark Shepard back in the finale.
I hope this wasn't the last episode with him, because you know how shows do that though. They bring back the cameos so they don't tie him up in the screen time in the finale when you can be using it to finish out your characters. So, but I mean, next week we got the finale, series finale, and I did not think we'd be here with Titans done and Doom Patrol done. And but we'll see how it ends, and if we're happy with it. We were pretty okay with the Titans ending, right?
Yeah,
if I recall correctly.
I think we kind of came down on it. Sucked it was over, but
yeah, it ended okay.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Let's do this. Invincible Season 2, Episode 1. A lesson for your next life. We're going to fugitives.com. I couldn't really find a great recap for this. I probably could have looked more today because I did look when it first launched. So, the episode opens with Invincible duking it out with Immortal, the former leader of the Guardians. And while it seems to... Oh, sorry, I'm going to fugitives.com, and this is by... before I go... Siddhartha Das. We've been with him before. Did he switch websites? He's the one that did the Titan stuff for us. Oh, anyways. The episode opens... And while it seems to be a sparring session between the two, all of a sudden, Omni-Man joins in on the fight and brutally dispatches Immortal. Were you confused, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just double check. I was like, this isn't right. But there's a theme that this year is doing, and this lines up right with it.
Which makes me feel a lot better because you got to rewatch season 1.
Yeah, and I was still very confused.
I had not, and I was like, okay, I must really not remember.
Yeah.
Season 1 that well.
So, it is later revealed, viewers might be confused about Omni-Man's sudden return, and it is later revealed this incident takes place in an alternate dimension, or as we might say, on a different Earth altogether, where similar situations result in different outcomes, which seems to be the common thing with all of our comic style stuff. Multiverses, timelines, and everything. Hell, Doom Patrol, same thing. Which is kind of weird that there's a lot of stories that revolve around the same stuff. In this reality, Mark had paid heed to his old man's word and joined his side, after which the duo decimated the world's defenses and took the planet under their control. The scene focuses on a scientist named Angstrom Levy, an associate of this world's robot who hasn't gotten his Rudy version of his body, who is a part of the last remaining resistance, which includes a shaved head version of Adam Eve as well. Do you know who Angstrom is played by? Did you pick up on it?
Angstrom, no.
So he is played by one Sterling K. Brown, and I picked up on it during his speech right before he portals out for the first time. Future spoilers, by the way. But I was like, that voice is so familiar to me. And then Amazon Prime has something I absolutely love, and I wish everything else did it. When you tap the screen or pause it, it has a little bar on the side of it, and it shows you who's in the scene.
Yep.
So now I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
IMDb anything. I just pause, and it's just right there. And I was very like, oh, it's just so good to have with these voice acting. Because remember when we did our trailer reacts, we paused it, and dozens of names popped up. So we're gonna have a lot of famous people. So make sure we got our listening ears on, audience. Let's see. Levi or Angstrom was sent to retrieve a unique object that might be used against Omni-Man. He successfully delivers it to Robot, but while doing so, he gets secretly tailed by Omni-Man and Invincible, and a vicious battle ensues. Beams using the specialized object don't put a scratch on Omni-Man, who easily incapacitates Robot, which he says you should have never been born. I was like, God. Which is, I love it. This man is so good. Let's see. Mark apprehends Eve, and as she rejects his proposal of disbanding the Resistance, he snaps her neck just enough to keep her alive in excruciating pain and paralyzes her. After taking care of the superheroes, the duo proceeds to take down the rest of the humans who side with the Resistance, which is when Angstrom was seen fleeing the scene by creating a portal. A lot of good, like, just one-liners here from Omni-Man too. He said, "Oh, so that's what you were protesting on the protesters last week." He said, "Yeah." He goes, I wanted to keep her alive just so I could visit her." I was like, God, it's so sociopathic,
so evil,
but it's so good.
So evil,
man. It's been a month since the devastating tragedy in Chicago took place in prime reality, and the world has slowly started recuperating from the harrowing tragedy. However, Mark hasn't been able to move on from the trauma for obvious reasons. Having the person, his father, whom he idolized throughout his life, turn out to be the exact opposite of what he believed him to be, causing brutal genocide and rejecting his family in favor of some predetermined galactic takeover plan of his home planet, has shaken up Mark enough to put him in a state of depression. To add to this misery, Global Defense Agency Chief Cecil Stedman isn't allowing him to partake in superhero escapades either, except rescue situations, as he can't risk involving another Viltrumite in tense situations who might not be emotionally stable at this time. Mark pleads with Cecil to allow him the chance to prove that he is ready to take on new challenges, only to lash out later and prove Cecil's point. Through his conversation with his girlfriend Amber and friend Adam Eve, it becomes clear that Mark feels his life as a school-going teenager is wasted unless he can be allowed to help people like he used to do. Mark's mother, Debbie, is going through a similar situation, as Nolan's rejection of the life they had built has emotionally shattered her as well, and unfortunately she has even fewer outlets to share her thoughts. Thankfully, Olga, widow of the deceased speedster superhero Red Rush, a previous Guardians of the Guild member, stops by her house, and the duo pour their hearts out over a bottle of wine. Realizing Debbie needs much more than a few hours of chat, Olga provides her with a mysterious-looking card stating it will help her recover from emotional breakdowns. I'm confused. I'm intrigued about this. Who is on this card? So
yeah, there's no writing.
So
it's just a design. It looks like.
So I'm like, who could this be? On the other hand, of course, we know nothing. We haven't read anything about the Invincible comics, so we don't know anything in this world, and I love it. On the other hand, in the absence of the Guardians, Invincible, and Omni-Man, the second grade Soup Alliance, the teen team consisting of Robot, Rexplode, Duplicate, Black Samson, and Monster Girl, is GDA's last resort to stop otherworldly and superhuman threats, and to much of Cecil's frustration, they are not up to the task. He decides to change the leadership and brings in Immortal, the 1,000-year-old experienced hero and the only surviving member of the Guardians in the team, to help guide the teenagers along with another hero named Bulletproof. Meanwhile, Angstrom uses his portal-creating powers to free the Prime Earth version of the Mauler twins from the prison and takes them to Earth, which, in this scene, I know they didn't really show it. The guard that's got his broken arm, that's who they used to escape. When he was fed them, one of the Mauler twins pulled his arm in, broke it, and then placed his hand on the scanner to free them. And that was the whole reason of their exchange. Let's see. Viewers may remember these genius hulking brute maulers who were instrumental in transferring the Prime Earth version of the robot's consciousness into the human body, and it turns out that in every reality, their genius remained unparalleled. The maulers are confused as to why they were summoned, and Angstrom goes on a brief exposition session. They learn that contrary to what happened in Prime Earth during the Battle of the Graysons in Chicago, Angstrom's version of Earth was ravaged when Earth's Mark Grayson decided to join signs with his dad. Angstrom states that using his portal creation powers, he can access an infinite number of realities, and he has found out that in almost every version of them, Mark and Nolan have teamed up and take control over Earth. Now, Angstrom is a pacifist, and he isn't inspired by the revenge motives as of yet. Instead, his approach is more cerebral. Angstrom has managed to. Oh, there is an ad right all over my words here. Ooh, I'm going to try to. Let me refresh here because I want to read it. Okay. Angstrom has managed to gather all his doomed reality counterparts, 1,000 Angstrom levies, and although it just popped right back over, bear with me. He is able to do his portal creating powers. Like him, all of them share their own knowledge of their respective Earths. Every single Angstrom knows something about their Earth, one way or other, which knowledge Angstrom does not have, they can be saved and improved. Okay. To accumulate the knowledge inspired by his Earth's version of Mahler's design, Angstrom has created a gigantic symbiotic encoder machine, which will allow him to read and copy the minds of thousands of his own other reality versions of himself. However, to successfully complete the device, he needs the help of the original designers, the Mahler twins, and in exchange, he allows them to have an Earth of their choice that meets their conditions. The problematic part is that Angstrom has chosen to carry out his multiverse experiment in one of the dockyards in Chicago on Prime Earth. The breakout of the Mahler twins already kept GDA on their toes, and now as they got spotted in the dockyard along with an energy surge at the same location, Cecil-led GDA quickly gets a whiff of an alarming situation. But right at that moment, Mark once again returns to Cecil and pleads with him to allow him to undertake missions as he's willing to comply with his commands, and Cecil sends him to the dockyard to apprehend the Mahler twins. The encoder's turned on before Mark arrives, and Levi starts receiving the accumulated knowledge of his 1,000 counterparts at once. However, Mark's sudden entry jeopardizes his plan, and despite Levi continually begging him not to interfere in his mission, which is supposedly being done for a greater good, a headstrong Mark considers it to be another of Mahler's evil machinations and engages the duo in battle. To stall Mark's advances, Angstrom brings in different versions of Earth's Mahlers, and together the Mahler group overpowers Mark with ease. The group goes overboard while hurting Mark, and Angstrom pleads with them not to mortally injure him, as he doesn't want to paint his utopia with the stains of blood. I thought that was a beautiful line. And it showed his character. He said, no, we're not hurting people here. I'm only doing this to save realities. So Mahler show no indication of stopping, and a desperate Angstrom overcharges the encoder, which results in an explosion that at once obliterated all the Angstroms and Mahlers. Mark appears to be gravely injured, but he survives and feels aghast at not being able to rescue the Angstroms. The team arrives at the spot to check up on everything else, and Cecil reassures Mark about the success of his mission. Mark returns to his home to reconnect with his mother, and later gets to know that he and Amber have managed to get admission to a college together. Immortal pays him a visit and clarifies his stance, stating that unlike Cecil, he does not trust Mark, and that he will monitor him from now on. Immortal's mistrust is understandable, as after all, he was killed twice by Omni-Man, so it's tough for him to put faith in the instincts of another person of Viltrum origin. Later, one of Prime Earth's Mahler twins appears to have survived with a mangled, burnt-up body. And as he looks for his twin amongst the rubble, he rescues the only surviving Angstrom, the one who planned everything to begin with. The freak accident disfigured his body, overcharged his mind, and harbors the conflicting consciousnesses of all different Earth's Angstroms at once. A nefarious, vengeful version of Angstrom emerges to be in charge, who blames Invincible for what happened to him and his Earth and swears disastrous revenge upon him in return. As the episode ends, the disgusted surviving Mahler leaves, stating he will not repeat the mistake of helping out anyone with their problems yet again. Oh, God, I'm tired of talking. I'm very excited to see where we go from here. Having Invincible working with Cecil, and Cecil kind of being over everything is very cool. But it begs the question, where is Omni-Man? He definitely went back to Viltrum, right? Is what we're thinking?
Yeah, I would think so.
So it's... And where's the one-eyed alien who's played by Seth Rogen? We haven't seen him again this season yet. I forgot his name. He was at a couple episodes of the first season. But, so we've only got one episode left. 3 episodes left until next year. And then it's supposed to come back again. So, okay. Since we're running long on time here, we're an hour and 40 minutes into this episode. Longest one in a long time. Let's do our heroes in Douche Canoe. But instead of going through each one and naming one, just start throwing some pics of me for your hero count here. Let's see. Gen V. I'm trying to think. I want to say Marie.
Marie definitely, yeah.
Loki didn't really have a hero this episode, or a douche canoe either. Honestly,
Not really, no.
um, Goosebumps hero Lucas for
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
um, Doom Patrols. I'm trying to think. Um, you could advocate for Laura.
Right.
Um, for being the only one to go to the show to try to get their longevity back.
You could
Uh,
also maybe make a case for Vic.
mm-hmm. Sacrificing everything to become cyborg again,
Hmm.
which is what should have happened to begin with. But Invincible, you've got Invincible. He was really the only good guy here. The team didn't really, the GDC didn't really help anything either.
Right.
Um, I'm okay with Marie out of this list. If you are,
I'm good with that.
okay. So that will put that's Maria's first hero count, first and only hero count in the season. Douche canoe. All right. Oh, there was one that I really wanted to bring up. Oh, Kate. Come on. It's got to be Kate here. This whole thing, killing humans, making the Dean kill herself, taking away Sam's feelings. Although he wanted that. That's a big case I've got there. Newman also for killing the listen, I'm surprised it took this long to start yawning. Let's move on. Let's get on with it.
Yeah. For killing the scientist.
Yeah, for killing the scientist at the end.
Yeah, I think that's. By the way, we I don't think we really talked about on Gen V how Emma shrank after crying a lot.
What was that about?
So apparently she doesn't have to vomit. Apparently it's just loss of bodily fluids.
Yep. So it's very interesting, which they didn't really mention that in the reviews or the recaps. But that was something I was like, that's new. That's kind of we didn't know anything about that.
She's like, what the hell?
So,
yeah, I think you could go for either of those two. You could also. Kate's certainly above this other person, but Allison on Goosebumps, she's just
that was so
extremely.
Oh God, yeah, that was very bad.
She's extremely paranoid.
Yeah.
Right. And then she doesn't believe Isaiah when he tells her.
Well, and she had that incident in the woods too, and she denies it. What incident in the woods? Oh, sweetheart, you had it.
Then she runs to the school guidance counselor and snitches him out.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm all about Allison here.
Kate's a lot worse.
Right, but
she's hurting people more.
What's a douchier here? So that brings up our hero count to Mobius 1, Derek 1, Emma 1, Timely 1, and Marie 1. Douche Canoe, Marie 1, General Docs 1, Rufus 1, Kate 1, and now Allison 1. So, which is a very good list. About to say
spread out.
Yeah. Releases this week, Wednesday, November 8th, The Santa Clauses Season 2 starts, which we will not be reviewing until after Thanksgiving, because that's when you should do Christmas stuff. Unbelievable why they would do things like that.
That's weird.
Yeah. And then movie-wise, we were going to do our horror movie rankings, but, we are an hour 45 minutes into this episode. So remember that next week, because we're not going to have as many TV shows to talk about and recap and do. So be ready for that. Have your rankings and list. And then we're also going to talk about the Marvels, which releases November 10th in cinemas. Mm-hmm. So will we be watching Loki in the parking lot beforehand? Who knows?
Maybe.
Maybe. So.
Now wait, Loki drops though at 7 Eastern, right?
I think it's 7 our time, so it's 8 Eastern.
7 our time.
Yeah.
Oh, bummer.
Because the only reason I know this is because when the Titans and Steelers played Thursday night was right when the episode came out, like right when they started playing. So naturally, why we relate everything to that, I don't know. Meanwhile, let's go Steelers. Suck it. Listen, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe to everything. We know that the whole rigmarole at the beginning. We really hope you enjoy this episode of the podcast. Gen V's done. Doom Patrol is going to be done for good next week, which just sucks, man. And Loki's going to be done. For season 2, we don't know anything about season 3. I would love a season 3 because the writers of this show are just chef's kiss and they know what they're doing, and they constantly provide a phenomenal show. But don't forget to share on all your favorite social media platforms. If you enjoy this episode, you can follow us on everything. We're Nerdwide everywhere. Just search us with the first thing that pops up: Facebook, Threads, Instagram, Twitter. But we're everywhere, so follow us there if you want the latest news of how we're going to do it all. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to this supersized episode of the Ketchup Nerdwide podcast. We really hope you enjoyed it. We cannot wait to talk to you about the Marvels and the Doom Patrol finale next week.
Later, guys.